This is the only video you need to watch to prepare for your Oxford or Cambridge interview. Hello, I'm Andrew, a third-year student at Cambridge, and my mission is to make everything you need to know about getting into Oxford or Cambridge completely accessible and free. To create this guide, I interviewed over 50 current students, gathering insider tips on how they got in. I have also had the privilege of speaking to university interviewers off camera, gaining unique insights into what sets successful candidates apart. On top of that, as a private tutor, last year I mentored a state school student to secure a place at the University of Oxford. I am passionate about making this process less daunting, so I've compiled all the essential advice you need for your interview into this one video. Here is how the video is structured. First, we'll cover how to prepare in the lead up to your interview. And then I will walk you exactly what to do on the day itself. Let's get started. Number 1, create a mind map of your personal statement. Your personal statement is your launching pad for the interview, especially for humanities subjects, whereas they are generally a little less important for STEM subjects. What I did, and what I recommend you do too, is get a notepad and then on the first page, right in the center, write the first line of your personal statement. From there, mind map exactly what you meant and think about how this sentence could become a question. How would you answer it? Then do the same on the next page with the second line of your personal statement. Some sentences might be easier than others and only spend a maximum of 10 minutes per line. However, it is helpful to think about how you could clarify exactly what you meant. The interviewers want to see that it was you who wrote your personal statement and not your teachers who did it for you. You can prove this by being able to back up your opinions in the interview. Number 2, master grounding techniques. Nerves are perfectly natural, but they must not take control. Some students miss out on places at these top universities simply because their nerves prevent them from performing to their true potential. The interview is not just about what you know, but it's also about how you present yourself under pressure. Thus, practicing grounding techniques such as deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation can be invaluable. These methods allow you to stay calm and focused and thus fully engage with the question instead of being overwhelmed by stress. One technique that I still use before important meetings, exams, or public speaking is box breathing. It is simple yet effective. So you breathe in for 8 counts, hold for 8 counts, exhale for 8 counts, and then hold for 8 more counts. This process slows down your heart rate, clears your mind, and can help you feel centered. Especially useful in the 5 to 10 minutes before logging onto the Microsoft Teams or walking into the interview room. If box breathing doesn't feel right, that's okay. There are plenty of tutorials on YouTube, so feel free to search loads of them up and try them out. Find a technique that helps you calm your mind and assures you that you know you will be able to perform at your best. The day before your interview, you must take time off. Please give yourself the permission to rest and avoid cramming, because this is just going to add even more stress, exhaust you, and increase the chances of you going into your interview feeling burnt out. It would be a real shame to not be able to give it your all in the interview just because you're too exhausted from working the previous days. If possible, take the afternoon before or the whole day before off work. Do something relaxing, a passion project, watch a film, or just do something that you enjoy, because this way the next day you will be feeling refreshed and sharp. Number 4, prepare your technology and travel plans ahead of time. If your interview is online, choose a quiet location and then tell everyone that you live with you will need absolute silence during this time. Set up everything early and double check your technology. Is your camera working and is your microphone clear? Have a backup plan in case something goes wrong, and make sure you know how to rejoin the Microsoft Teams meeting in case of technical difficulties. Now for candidates who will have their interview in person, please plan your logistics carefully. Know exactly where you need to be, how to get there, and when to leave in order to avoid last-minute stress. Personally, I would recommend to leave plenty of time the morning of your interview and just take it for a given that there will be traffic and there will be other unexpected delays. If it's possible, I would recommend travelling up to Oxford or Cambridge the day before and then staying overnight. This can help you feel more prepared and relaxed. If that is not feasible, then don't worry, it's by no means a necessity. Just make sure that you factor in enough time for travel on the day. Number 5, use visualization to boost your confidence. Visualization is a very powerful technique. In the weeks running up to your interview, take 1 minute to close your eyes and imagine yourself walking confidently into the interview room or clicking on that link to join the team's meeting. Picture yourself answering the questions thoughtfully, even if they are challenging. Although this might sound stupid and you might think, this probably won't help me at all, positive visualizations can really set your body up for success. It can also build your confidence, and besides, top athletes use this, so why shouldn't you? For example, Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian, frequently used visualization as part of his training plan. Before races, he mentally rehearsed every single detail, every single stroke from start to finish, and even visualized potential challenges and how he would overcome them. In the 2008 Beijing Olympics, Phelps won the 200-meter butterfly, despite his goggles filling up with water and blinding him for the majority of the race. How did he still manage to win? Well, this was a problem that he had already visualized. His mental preparation helped him stay calm and focused, which contributed towards his success. Number 6, focus on your subject and not irrelevant extracurriculars. The application to Cambridge or Oxford is very different to an application to an American university. While US universities often look for well-rounded applicants who excel in multiple areas, Oxbridge primarily focuses on your ability to excel in your chosen subject. This does not mean that if you're going to apply to study maths, you can get a 9 in maths GCSE and ignore everything else, because they're still taking into account your profile as a candidate, so this includes all of your academic results so far. However, when I was applying, I distinctly remember attending an online webinar. And in this webinar, a Cambridge fellow said, if you're applying to study history, it really doesn't matter if you didn't do so well in GCSE art. They are not looking for perfect all-rounders, they're more looking for subject specialists. This can be really liberating, so focus on really excelling in your subject field rather than trying to tick every single extracurricular box. Number 7, research your college and the interview format. Each college may structure its interviews differently. Find out how many sessions you'll have, the format, and how long each one will last. Understanding exactly what to expect will help you prepare better. While you should research general expectations, it should be fairly brief, and you shouldn't focus too much on your interviewers' personal profiles because they won't expect you to know any of their published work. What's more, if you casually mention an article that they wrote or some research that they've done, it actually comes across as quite sycophantic. For context, I only had one interview for Cambridge, and this was an hour long, and I knew that it would cover all aspects of the course. Number 8, don't stress about researching your academic references. In preparation to record this video, I did some research, and I looked up on YouTube Oxbridge interview advice, just to check what other advice was out there. One misconception that I came across is that you need to look up your teacher references on UCAS and prepare for questions about them. This is not necessary. And for context, certain teachers at school will write references about you to support your university application. However, you do not get to see these references yourself. The admissions tutors will understand that you will not have access to this information. Instead, focus on knowing your personal statement inside out and brushing up on your subject knowledge. Do not waste time worrying about private references which are out of your control. Number 9, contact the college about your disability requirements. If you consider yourself to be a disabled student, then contact the college about any accessibility requirements. This could either be a physical or learning disability, for example, ADHD, dyslexia, or being a wheelchair user. If you mention this in your UCAS application, then your college should provide reasonable adjustments for the interview process. Just to be sure, contact the college directly to discuss your specific needs. Number 10, practice explaining your subject out loud. While preparing for an Oxford or Cambridge interview, it is crucial to practice speaking about your subject out loud. Note that this does not have to be a formal mock interview. Try speaking about a specific topic or your motivation to study at university with anyone. This person does not need to know anything about your field. You just need to get used to talking about complex ideas and explaining them clearly in front of another person. You could talk to a friend, a family member, a teddy, or even just record yourself using your phone. Set up a timer for 2 minutes and then explain something from your personal statement, a recent article you read, or a discussion that you had in class. Section 2. Advice for the day of the interview. Let's dive into tips for the big day itself. 11. Directly answer the question, but guide the conversation. This is mainly for humanities students. So remember what the exercise of the interview is really about. You've only got 1 hour to put your best foot forward and prove yourself. The interview is not only about showcasing your knowledge, but also about demonstrating how you think. If a question comes up that you're unsure about, don't panic. Give a concise answer and, if appropriate, try steering the conversation to one of your strengths. For example, I study French and Spanish, and in my interview I got asked a question about Spanish politics, which was my worst topic in the entire A-level. Instead of waffling, I gave a short 1-sentence answer, and when the interviewer said, "Do you want to expand?" I said, "No." By doing this, I indirectly guided the conversation to an area where I felt more confident. Remember, your interviewers want to see you at your best, so they will pick up on these cues. Be strategic and use moments like this to guide the discussion in your favor. But how can you do this without just ignoring the original question? I repeat, if a tough question comes up, then directly answer it. Don't just ignore it and start talking about something completely separate. For example, if you're asked about a theme in a book that you mentioned on your personal statement, you could give a brief explanation, but then relate it to another theme, which might be even more relevant or engaging. Let's say that the question is about the importance of free will in this book. After addressing this briefly, you might guide the conversation towards another philosophical concept perhaps, like absurdist atheism. You could argue that absurdist atheism is just as, if not more central to the text. This approach shows not only your knowledge, but your critical thinking skills. Number 12, take your time. Here is one of the most important pieces of advice that I always give to my tutoring clients. Don't be afraid to just ask for a moment to think. If a question stumps you, it's perfectly fine to ask for a second to gather your thoughts. For example, in my interview, they asked me to compare 2 books in a way that I just never thought of before. As I was completely stuck, instead of just blurting out the first basic idea that came to my head, I said, "Can I have a second to think about that, please?" They said yes, and to be honest, it was awkward, just sitting there in silence for a minute while I tried to think about this question. However, taking that moment for myself allowed me to deliver a much more insightful response afterwards. Pro tip, the quality of your answer matters much more than filling an awkward silence. Don't fear this sort of silence. It's not a sign that you're struggling, rather reflecting. 13. Accept that you can be wrong. Oxbridge isn't looking for perfection, they're looking for potential. What does this mean? The admissions panel isn't looking for somebody who thinks that they already know it all. They're looking for somebody with the aptitude to learn and adapt. If the interviewer presents you with a new idea or corrects you, don't resist it. Instead, say something like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that before." Then say, "This changes how I originally considered X." This shows that you're open to learning, a key skill for the supervision or tutorial system which is central to our teaching at Oxbridge. If you disagree with their suggestion, you are allowed to challenge them. However, Make sure you do so in a respectful way, because the last thing that you want to do is come across as rude, arrogant, and unwilling to be corrected. Number 14, speak your thoughts. When you don't know the answer outright, don't simply respond, "I don't know." Instead, explain your thought process. This helps the interviewer see how you approach problems. I know this is a cliche, but if you don't do it, how will the interviewer know what you're thinking? They cannot read your mind, so give an example which will help you get closer to the answer. For STEM, if you're asked a tricky maths question and you don't know how to solve it, at least walk them through how you'd start solving it, even if you can't finish it. One important thing to remember is that at Cambridge or Oxford, you will be pushed to your limits. You will always be learning new things, so they want to see how you deal with taking on new information. Number 15, you must wear whatever makes you feel confident. Wear comfortable clothing. There is no need to wear smart attire unless it boosts your self-esteem. Whilst a suit is not necessary, I decided to wear one anyway. This is because at my sixth form, I wore a suit every single day to go to school because this was the uniform. So I just decided to wear the exact same thing for my interview. Number 16, be honest. Don't try and be someone that you are not. Avoid walking into the interview with an idea of the perfect applicant that the admissions teams want to see. Instead, show up as yourself. The interviewers are not looking for walking encyclopedias. They're looking for passionate, curious students who are eager to learn. They want to have an honest conversation with you to assess your suitability for the course. Take my friend Tilly, for example. She studies veterinary sciences at St John's College, Cambridge. During her personal interview, she was asked, "How are you going to deal with failure here?" At Cambridge, we have some of the brightest minds in the whole world, so you won't always be at the top of the class. Tilly's response, "I'm not top of the class at school right now. I'm not the smartest person, but I work really hard for what I'm passionate about. I am motivated to keep improving." She added, "I fail sometimes. I don't ace every single test, and it's unrealistic to try and be perfect all the time. Life gets in the way, and that's okay." Her interviewer loved her honest, grounded answer. Tilly firmly believes that it was one of the reasons that she was offered a place. Here is an example from my own experience. So, in my A-level French class, there was another girl who was also applying to read languages at Cambridge. We often discussed what we were reading for our personal statements. She had chosen some very complex classical books, and to be honest, it made me feel inadequate. I wasn't as interested in classical literature. I was much more passionate about 21st century French films. Our interests were completely different, and so were our motivations to study the same course, and that's completely okay. It's important to remember that Oxford and Cambridge are not looking for just one type of student. In my personal statement, I ended up talking about a children's book and lots of modern French film because that's what I genuinely enjoy. That passion came through in my interview. So don't feel pressured to talk about things that you only half understand. It's far better to excel, explaining something that you genuinely love, even if it's simple, than to try and sound impressive by regurgitating information that you don't fully grasp. The interviewers are often world experts in their field, so they can see right through this. Finally, I had a friend who did not manage to read one of the books that he mentioned on his personal statement. When it came up in his interview, he admitted it honestly, and the interviewers were understanding. Whilst preparation is crucial, honesty is the most important thing. Always be truthful about what you've done and what you know. Number 17, structure your answers with a clear conclusion. End strong, and avoid trailing off with, so yeah, or, yeah, I guess that's it. Instead, summarize your answer with a conclusion like, overall, it's clear to me that is the most important. Or, although there's no clear answer, I would suggest as a solution. Ending confidently gives a strong final impression, and it shows that you've really thought through your response. Section 3, final thoughts. Your goal is to showcase your curiosity and passion rather than to deliver flawless answers. If you walk out thinking, I could have done better, you're not alone. Remember that the interview is a very tiring exercise and it will most likely push you a lot harder than the work that you're doing at school. It's important that you enjoy this because at the end of the day, the interview just reflects what a supervision or tutorial would be like if you were here as a student at Cambridge or Oxford. Good luck for your interview. Remember, this experience is as much about the university getting to know you as about you getting to know the university. Stay calm, stay curious, and above all, stay yourself. Moreover, if you want to know how I excelled in Year 13 and scored all A stars, I encourage you to check out this video.